Well, hello everybody. I'm Hal,
And I'm Melanie.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical. Tell people where we are, dear.
We're in Talkeetna, Alaska.
We have been up here for some homeschooling events. Our first visit to the 49th state, the last frontier, the land of the midnight sun, the great white north, all those things.
And it was very weird because we left home with everything green and beautiful, full-blown spring. Our azaleas were all in full bloom, just incredibly beautiful. And in the cabin we're in Talkeetna, there's still 4 feet of snow on the ground around the cabin.
It is definitely a different climate, and we took some pictures of Mount Denali the other day. Right at sunset, it was 10:30 p.m. and the sun was just going down. And we're not into high summer yet up here. This is it's just very different. So
We've had a lot of fun though. We've been up here exhibiting at some homeschool conferences, but we are headed home tomorrow and getting ready for conferences to come.
and so that's what we kind of wanted to talk about because everything got so disrupted a couple of years ago, and the recovery process has been step by step by step. And we just thought it would be appropriate to kind of talk about what should you expect and why should you consider going to a homeschool conference in these days right after the pandemic.
Well, it always surprises me to meet people who've been homeschooling a long time and have never been to a homeschool conference because homeschool conferences have been a big part of our homeschooling from the very beginning. And I'm meeting too new homeschoolers who may not even realize that homeschool conferences are a thing.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, when we started homeschooling many years ago, there wasn't all of the information just whizzing around, that was so easily accessible. So much of the information that we got homeschooling, we got from local support groups, we got from homeschool conferences and speaking to, hearing the speakers and talking to the publishers and the writers and such that came to those conferences. I mean, it was really critical just to get the information, the foundation that we needed to succeed at this.
You can get the information other ways now. You can get it online.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to our podcast and hear us speaking on the podcast.
Right.
So what makes it different and worthwhile? That's what we really need to talk about, because I am convinced that going to homeschool conferences makes you a stronger homeschooler and a stronger parent and is really worth the time and energy and money.
I totally concur. And I would have told you that long before we were speakers at conferences ourselves.
Oh yeah.
When we were people sitting in the audience, we said, "Wow, this is powerful. This is useful. This is so encouraging." And that's really the thing that cemented it to me, is that I always came back with a feeling of refreshment, rejuvenation, with a renewed vision for what we were doing. Looking forward to the next year.
One thing that I think is really useful is that when I'm looking for information online, I am looking for information I know that I need. But when I go to a conference, I look through and there's all these different workshops that may come up with topics I didn't even know I needed. Ideas I've never thought of, things I may not have considered.
Oh gosh,
I
yes.
think that's one of the huge benefits of being at a conference, is being exposed to new things. We've been homeschooling a long time, 28 years. And she coughs out. But, I still need new ideas. I've still got children at home I'm homeschooling. My grandchildren are about to start homeschooling. And I need to be open to new ideas, thinking about things, because every child's different. The world changes. The children are different. There's always that opportunity that I need new things. And when I walk into a conference, I can't tell you how many times I've just thought, and just to see what it was about, gone to a session, a workshop session that absolutely had a tremendous impact on me.
There's so much that goes on at these things. They're not just the book fair, although that's reason enough to go, really. But it's not just the material that's involved, but it's the discussions that you hear, it's meeting other people, it's sitting in the workshops where maybe they're teaching nuts and bolts about teaching reading, but maybe they're talking about parenting. Maybe they're talking about relationships in your family at large. Maybe they're talking about our freedom to homeschool and how fragile that could be.
And the opportunity to talk to speakers in between workshops, because usually you and I spend the entire time
Hmm.
between when we're doing workshops at the booth talking to people and praying with them. And, I think that's so valuable. I love people coming up and they've said, I heard this session and here's my situation at home. Can you give me some insight into that? And we get to talk and
Hmm.
visit, seek the Lord together. And that's something I can't do except at conferences.
And I'll tell you this too, as a speaker and a writer, that is it's not just the opportunity to encourage and to help people, but that's a big help to me and to you and to our ministry too. Because when somebody says, "Well, now I've got a situation, how would you advise me on that?" There are times when people come up with something and we look at each other and say, "Wow, we've never encountered that," but that's a serious question.
And other times that we're thinking about an issue and people ask the same question in Tennessee and Minnesota and California and New Mexico and we realize, you know what, this is a topic that people are dealing with. This is something we need to address on our podcast. Something that we need to maybe consider including in an upcoming book. We learn a lot from talking to you guys too.
So really and truly, I want to encourage you, do not feel shy about reaching out to an author, to a speaker, to a teacher, and asking the question or sharing whatever insight or thought you might have, because likelihood is it's either going to be an encouragement to that speaker or it's going to help them improve their messaging, improve their teaching, to accommodate how the situations may have changed since they originally wrote that.
Well, you know what? Also, too, is that
Mm-hmm.
it is a tremendous encouragement. The talking to people and
Mm-hmm.
hearing what the Lord is doing in their lives
Right.
keeps me going. I mean, what traveling around and going to conferences and stuff is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And I love hearing what God is doing in people's lives. It makes it all worthwhile.
Well, now it's not just to the interaction between the speakers, but the interaction with, I mean, between the people in the audience. I mean, you hear this a lot. The folks that just met outside the concession stand, or they're taking a break, or two moms that step out to nurse a baby at the same time, and they end up talking with each other.
Oh, I've made dear friends that way.
Yeah.
And also the conversations while you're waiting on a session to start.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are people you've got something in common with. You come to the same workshop, you've got the same interest.
Mm-hmm.
And the book fair.
Yes, the book fair.
How many times have I seen a product at a book fair that I didn't know existed?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm thinking about one that I picked up for one of our musical kids
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely changed everything for this child.
Right.
It opened a whole new window into a whole new thing for her that now she's taken and run with, and I didn't know the product existed.
And I think we all recognize that marketing is one thing, but the reality could be something very different. And to be able, I mean, even if you've seen something advertised or you've heard people talking about it, to be able to pick it up and to look at it, and even better, to talk to the writer, to talk to the author of this book, or to talk to the person who developed this curriculum and ask them questions. I mean, that is so powerful. Do you ever have that opportunity about other things you buy, about your car, about your
No.
groceries, about, just, but to say, hey, this is something that I'm planning to use every day. It's going to have an impact on my life and my children's life. And what an opportunity to meet somebody who has thought this all through and put it down in writing, and you can ask them the questions and really understand what you're considering.
Because when you go to a homeschool conference, very frequently, the owners of the company are there in that booth talking to you.
Hmm.
And if not, if they have representatives, these are people who have used that curriculum for years. They're familiar with it. They can talk to you about it in a way that you couldn't otherwise. And there are times I've come wanting a particular curriculum, particular product,
Hmm.
and got there and looked at it and realized, what, this would not work for our family. And
Hmm.
how much money does that save? realizing this is not the right thing, or finding just the right thing. But yeah, the book fair is really an amazing thing. It keeps you fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're using the same thing because we've been using it for years, and we don't even realize that there's something new or better out there, something easier to use,
Maybe
something
even
more
just
engaging.
maybe even just a new edition of the thing you've been using.
Oh yeah.
And that makes a difference. I'll tell you something else too, and this is, let me see how to word this exactly. Particularly when you are struggling with something, sometimes you may feel a little shy about mentioning that in a place where that will become associated with you. But we have had so many times people have come up to us and they've shared something that they're dealing with their homeschooling, with their parenting, maybe even a question about their marriage. And we realize that we're safe because we're like the scapegoat in scripture said we're gonna hear this and we're gonna take it and we're gonna leave
Pack out
town.
our bags and leave
We're
town.
gonna
Yeah.
pack. Yeah, we're gonna leave town, and so it's not like I raised a prayer request in church, and I'm gonna hear this over lunch too. No, you're not, because you know we're safe. You can be anonymous to us if you want, and so that's another opportunity that does
Well,
come up sometimes.
and one of the biggest benefits of homeschool conferences, besides the effect on the homeschool mom and or
Hmm.
dad and their homeschool, is how it can affect other people. Like I frequently hear dads say, I remember one dad in particular that this just really touched me.
Hmm.
He said, I came to this conference because my wife wanted me to, and I figured, oh well,
Hmm.
we get a weekend in the hotel together. And
Yeah.
and he said, I came to this session because she wanted to, and I had no intention of paying attention. I was playing a game on my cell phone,
Hmm.
just trying to make her happy by being here. And he said, but you caught my attention, and what you said just hit me like a ton of bricks right between the eyes. And that dad went from the reluctant participant who was letting his wife homeschool to the on fire dad who was really excited about homeschooling and excited about discipling his kids.
Well, I saw the effect that it had on one of our mothers some years ago because not everybody in the extended family is enthusiastic about your decision to homeschool. And she had been kind of cautiously non-judgmental, but she wasn't really on board with it until she finally came to a conference with us, and it knocked her socks off because I think she'd just been picturing that we were probably some little cluster of people like a scout troop meeting in a church basement. She
Yeah, three
didn't
dozen
realize,
people in a church
and
basement.
she didn't realize, no, we're going to a convention and there's going to be several thousand people there, and you know what? They they are by and large well adjusted, well ordered families that have decent looking kids, and they all seem to get along with each other and with strangers,
And there's all this amazing curriculum in
and this
the curriculum fair.
incredible book fair full of all sorts of stuff. And I think that was really a turning point in her acceptance and support of our homeschooling, because she realized, oh, they're not a bunch of weirdos. They're
Yeah.
just decent families, and there's a lot of them. And you know what? This is a credible movement. And so, and I'll tell you what, that's another thing too. A lot of the state organizations realize the impact that grandparents have on families who are homeschooling, and a lot of them have reduced or even free admission for grandparents of homeschooling
Yes.
families.
Speaking of,
Hmm.
Hal, in the next few weeks, we are going to be doing 4 more conferences, some of the best conferences in the nation. So let's talk about that because I want these people to come and see us there.
Okay, so just coming up in the next week or two, you've got the dates for us there.
I've got the dates
Okay,
up.
just coming up in the next week, May 5th through 7th, we're going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for Teach Them Diligently.
That's just outside Gatlinburg.
That's just outside of Gatlinburg. Yes, it is.
And then May 26th to 28th, we'll be
Hmm.
at FPEA
That's
Orlando.
the Florida Parent Educators Association, and the Orlando conference is huge. It's like 15 to 20,000, somewhere in that
Oh yeah,
range. It's
it's giant.
gigantic, tremendous conference, and it's wow, it is absolutely stellar. It has always been great when we've been there. And
2 weeks later, we're going to be at another huge, fantastic conference.
in Richmond, Virginia, the Home Educators Association of Virginia.
HEAV.
HEAV, and it's always HEAV. Don't pronounce that. But
Yeah.
they are. But HEAV is just, they've got such a heart for families, and they've had this conference going in Virginia, and it's just grown and grown and grown, and it is an awesome event as well. If you're anywhere in the Central Atlantic region, that's a great destination.
And then a week later, we're going to be at Ocean Network in Albany, Oregon. So excited about that. We haven't been there since 2015, Hal.
Has it been that long?
It has been that long.
Wow.
And so I'm really excited about being back at Ocean. Sweet group of people out there serving the Lord in what can be a very challenging area.
And that's just a sampling. Those are the ones that we're speaking at. You know,
Yeah.
there are lots of events around, and some of them have already happened, and there's others coming up.
We did 2 Teach Them Diligently this year, and love the Teach Them Diligently conference. It's real heart for families. There's a lot going on, and you really need to be there. You need search for Homeschool Conference your state, and go to your state organization's homeschool conference. Look at one of these in an area you want to travel to and take a family vacation there. But get out and go to a homeschool conference, because it will keep you fresh. It will encourage you. It will build you up for the spiritual warfare that homeschooling is.
And I tell you what, we have loved homeschool conventions since we were brand new baby homeschoolers, and have been to big ones and been to small ones, and we've always come away with a renewed sense of what we were doing and what we were looking forward to, and the encouragement we've needed. You want to find out where we're going to be speaking, go to our website at raisingrealmen.com and look under events, and you'll see our calendar, not only where we're speaking, but also where we are not speaking, meaning if you would like us to come to your homeschool conference, or to your homeschool support group, or to your church event, there are weekends available, and they'll give you instructions where to find out and how to get in touch with us about that possibility.
Email your convention organizers, say, please invite Hal and Melanie, I want to hear them. You can also talk to your churches, family camps, and tell them you want us to come. We do family events for churches too, and we've spoken at family camps. We'd love to get out and talk to you there.
All right. Also, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can call our listener response line. That's at 919-295-0321, and just leave us a message there, and we can either answer you directly or on a future episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical. Until next time, we thank you for joining us. I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
And God bless you for listening.
Bye now.
You've been listening to Making Biblical Family Life Practical with Hal and Melanie Young. If you found this program interesting, challenging, and encouraging, why not join us on the web at halandmelanie.com. That's HALANDMELANIE.com. Or follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/Hal and Melanie, or Facebook.com/RaisingRealMen. This program is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Join us next week when we'll be back to talk about making biblical family life practical. Until then, thank you, and God bless you for listening.